morning. Hey, Pastor Tom, before we start, I haven't had my coffee this morning.
Hey,
Can I be honest?
well, I got a question for you. I'm coming up to the sermon before we get into our NFBC minutes. I just question how you doing? How you been doing today or this week in your prayer time, your prayer life? Is it you think you've been doing pretty good, or what do you think? How would you characterize that?
This week, I think pretty good. I think pretty good. I
Would you say you're hot? Your prayer life's been hot, cold? How would you put it there?
Ooh, it'd be hard to say. I mean, maybe somewhere in the middle, but hey,
Oh, okay,
at least
yeah.
it's not.
Well, hey, I got you a cup of coffee.
This is gonna make my day.
Yeah, so
Hey, I'm sorry, but what is this?
Tim Hortons coffee.
This is not hot. It's not even cold. It's not an iced coffee, and it's not a nice hot cup of dark roast. I mean, this is lukewarm.
Well, don't you like lukewarm coffee? I mean, I like mine hot personally.
Who would like lukewarm coffee?
You just told me that your prayer life was pretty lukewarm. He says, you think God likes that? Get the point?
I got it.
All right. Well, let's get on with our minute.
I got it. I think they got it too.
By the way, we're not advertising for Tim Hortons. It's just our favorite coffee.
Okay, well, I think they get the point. So that's where we are this week. Church at Laodicea, Revelation chapter 3, verses. It's the last one, verses 14 to 22.
Yeah.
What do we can expect for that?
Well, this is really very convicting. This is a church, one of the churches that Jesus sends a letter to, and it's really a rebuking. There's nothing good that Jesus says about this church. There's no commendation. It's a condemnation. And he right off he says you're lukewarm. And in fact, the name of my sermon is The Church That Gagged God, or God Gagged On. It's like, he says, I'm going to vomit you out of my mouth, because I wish you were cold. I wish you were hot, but you're neither cold nor hot. And because you're neither cold nor hot, I'm going to vomit you. And it's a church that is self-deluded. Deluded is the kind of the concept here. They're deluded to think that they're rich, that they're not poor. They have everything. They're wealthy. They don't need anything, they believe. And then Jesus says, whoa, let me tell you the reality of the situation. Yeah, you are poor. You're pitiful. You're wretched. You're naked, and you're even blind. And so he talks about that he comes and he offers them to give them a beautiful robe, a white robe, and to put a salve on their eyes to take away their blindness. In fact, there's an interesting image. We know a very famous verse in this passage. You remember the verse that says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens up to me, I will come into him and sup with him and he with me." That's a picture of Jesus outside the church knocking. Now, I don't know if you've seen, I should have, Sunday I'm going to show the picture. There's a very famous picture that someone painted about Jesus outside the door knocking and he has a lantern outside the door. What's interesting about the picture, this portrait, was that there's no latch on the outside. The latch is on the inside, which is saying Jesus can't even come in until you open up the latch and let him in. And so it's a sad picture that Jesus is outside the church asking to come in to fellowship and have communion with this church. And so it's a pretty pathetic picture of a church. But the Lord is asking in this church to repent, to come back and listen to him and come back and restore fellowship with him. So it's a picture of a church that's got a mixture, I think, of believers and unbelievers. And some would characterize it as an apostate church that have gone away. And it's kind of a picture of the church today in America, big time.
Yeah, really. It's a good parallel to much of the American evangelical church today. And just like with the coffee, you don't want your coffee somewhere in the middle. You either want an iced coffee or a nice hot cup of joe. You don't want lukewarm. And sometimes, you ask me my prayer life, but saying, I think it's somewhere in the middle, that's better than, we see how God looks at that.
Right.
And Jesus is basically saying, make a choice.
That's right.
And so this is the last letter of the church, and it ends with an invitation to let the Lord in. And the church today needs to let him rule and run his church.
That's right. That's why it ends every time. It says, let anyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit says to the churches. And we need to heed and listen and repent and receive Christ into our midst, in our fellowship, and get right with him today.
So, once again, join us this Sunday. We'd love to have you. We'd love to meet you in person. We thank you for tuning in every week, And until next time, we'll see you next minute.